Today, instead of a sermon, we're going to have a meditation based on the Gospel reading. We'll be using a meditation technique developed by Ignatius of Loyola in the 1500s. Ignatius was one of the great spiritual writers of the Christian faith and developed a form of meditation that doesn't speak to the intellect or to theology, but talks to our emotions and to our senses and uses our imagination. It allows us to come closer to God and understand what this story was about and what it has to speak to us. So I ask you to, if you're going to follow this meditation at this point, it's also going to be put online as a separate meditation on YouTube and Facebook, so you might want to use that at a different time. It will take about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. You need to allow that amount of time to do it. You need to find a place quiet where you won't be disturbed. Please, if you can, turn off your telephones, tablets, anything else, so you actually have some quiet time to do this and not be disturbed. Make yourself comfortable. Make sure you're warm enough or cool enough. You're not thirsty or hungry or anything else that will get in the way of you allowing yourself to get into a prayerful state. Then what we will do is I will put up the reading for today, and I ask you to read it slowly. Don't try to intellectualize it. Just take it as a story and get an image of what's going on. And then I will lead you through a reflection of what it was like to actually be there with Jesus on that boat as he walked on the water, and ask you to use your senses, your imagination, to engage with what the senses would have been like. What were the smells? What were the sounds? What were the emotions that have been around? At any time, I'd recommend you might want to stop the video if you need more time. I'm going to allow some time, but you might want more. You might want to get deeper into it. So just stop and start as you need to. And after we've done that, we will then go through it a second time. And I'll ask you to take the view of one of the characters and to go through the story. And that one I will be very open-ended. So I will just introduce it and then ask you to turn it off and take as long as you need. And then we'll end with a final prayer to sum up. So I invite you to engage in this, to allow parts of us perhaps we don't use as often in church or in our worship as we should, our imagination, to allow us to come closer to the story, closer to Jesus, and come closer to bring ourselves into his presence so he may show us things we need to know. We begin by asking for God's grace in this meditation. Lord Jesus, I ask you for the grace I desire, to know you more intimately, to love you more intensely, and to follow you more closely. We'll now go through this story twice. The first time I will lead you through and ask you to imagine yourself in the scene, you in the scene. The main thing to do is to imagine yourself using your senses, using your imagination. It's not a chance to intellectualize or do theology. It's to experience being actually there with Jesus and the disciples on that lake. Then we'll read through it a second time, and I'll ask you to identify with one of the characters and to imagine how you would react as that character. For the first one, I'll be leading you through, and if you need more time, please feel free to stop the video. The second time, I will just introduce it and then leave a space of time and then ask you to stop your video, and when you've finished it, start it up again, and we'll have our final prayer. So let's read through it the first time. The meal is finished. Jesus tells you to get onto the boat. How do you feel? You've just seen this miracle of these people being fed. 5,000 people fed with virtually nothing. You've been with Jesus for a while, and now he seems to be driving you away onto the boat. Visualize this scene on that lake where Jesus tells you to get in the boat and it's clear he's not joining you. What emotions strike through you? How do you feel? What does it look like? It's obviously getting near sunset. It's darkening. All the people are standing around wondering what's happening. What are your emotions? What does it smell like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? You're now in the boat. Imagine what the boat is like. It's a small boat rocking on a lake. It's probably a fishing boat with a strong sense of the smell of fish, of sweat, of the nets being there. What does it smell like? What does it feel like to be on that boat? It's gradually darkening. It's a lake you know well, but a lake you also respect. It's a lake surrounded by hills, so weather can come very quickly. And here you are, sitting across it as darkness falls. The wind begins to pick up. It begins to batter the boat. What does it feel like to be in a boat that's being battered this way? You start fighting against the waves. Maybe you're concerned because you know that this is a dangerous lake, and when the wind whips up, being so shallow, it's very dangerous. You know, many people have lost their lives on this lake, boats that never returned. How does that anxiety begin to fill you? Where does it affect you? When you're anxious and worried, how does it physically affect you? Remember those feelings. Imagine that is what they must have been feeling. You've battled all night. Dawn is not far. And you suddenly see Jesus walking towards you on the water. Jesus walking on the water. How do you react to that? What are your emotions? At first, you assume you can only see him faintly. It must be an illusion, it must be your eyes playing tricks. But yes, it's Jesus walking towards you on the water. You are scared out of your wits. What does it feel to be that frightened? What happens physically? What happens emotionally? What does your stomach feel? How do your knees feel? How's your heart pounding? Is your mouth dry? Remember the times you have been frightened, and here's a ghost coming towards you. Jesus steps towards the boat. He calls out, "Courage, it's me, don't be afraid." He calms you, he comforts you. Like a child frightened after a nightmare, being soothed by its parent. How does it feel to be in the peaceful, loving presence of Christ, in the midst of the waves and the fear and the anxiety and the darkness? But suddenly Peter speaks up. He says, "Master, call me. I'll come to you by walking on the water." Oh, it's Peter again. And off he steps onto the water. Feel how it sees to see him walking on the water, to see his faith, to see his boldness. How does it make you feel? But suddenly, he notices the wind's blowing. He notices he's walking on water, and he becomes frightened. He starts calling out, and he begins to sink. What do you feel now? He's going to drown. He's going to be lost. He's going to die. Because he followed Jesus. He came out of the water. What a fool. Why did he do it? And he cries out, "Lord, save me, save me." And Jesus reaches out his hand and caught him and says, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" What does Jesus' voice sound like at that time? Was it accusative? Was it loving? Was there even a bit of the humor in it? How did Jesus' voice sound at that moment? And suddenly, they're back in the boat. The wind has died. It is peaceful. Can you say with the rest of them, "Truly you are the Son of God"? Take a few moments to reflect back about all that's just happened. The smells, the experiences, your visualization of what you think it was like, your emotions, your fear, your amazement, your peace. And take a few moments to reflect on all that and to understand yourself in this story. You may at this point want to turn off the video and just go back and redo that exercise and just spend some time to do it very quietly and very slowly and just involve yourself in it. We now come to the second reading, and this one will be much more open-ended in the sense that I will guide you through it and ask you to turn off the video and then take as long as you need to do this. And then we will end with a prayer, which you turn back on for. So in our second reading, instead of just being an observer, being a participant in this story, choose one of the characters. One of the disciples, Peter, Jesus, maybe someone on the shore, I don't know. But one character, and relive the story from their perspective. In sense, whichever character you choose doesn't matter. We hope that God will lead you to the one you're supposed to be today. And after you've experienced a story from that person's perspective, take some time to talk to God. Tell him about how you felt being that character. Tell him about how that character or your experience in the first reading relates to your life today. And ask God, what are you saying to me right now? And when you've done that, come back and we will have a final prayer. May it please the supreme and divine goodness to give us all abundant grace, to know his most holy will, and to perfectly to fulfill it.